And you're welcome back. Well, by the 21st of February, just a few weeks from today, 1,680,315 persons will registered voters across the Federal Capital Territory will be going out to cast their votes across the 2,822 wards across the Federal Capital Territory. Now, while this is interesting because the FCT is divided largely into 6 major area councils. We have the Abuja, we have Amak, we have Buari, Gwagwalada, Kuje, and Kwali. Now, these is not just area council. They represent different sets of people with a different political culture, political beliefs, and ideologies. Now, this year's election is a bit very interesting because we are seeing a turnaround when it has to do with the political parties in the FCT. But one pressing issue that right now is on the lip of a lot of persons is, will there be actual election in the Federal Capital Territory come February the 21st? Now, outside the manifesto and also out the campaign strategies being put in place. On the other hand, a large majority of persons in the Federal Capital Territory belongs to the Islamic faith, and they've raised concern and even written letters to INEC challenging the date for been assigned for the election February the 21st. By that time, Ramadan fasting, which is observed yearly, would have started, and as such, a lot of Muslims will be observing the fast. As such, while we're waiting for INEC to even react to all of that, to try to see what can be done, but the matter now becomes, will there be a postponement of the FCT election come 2026, February the 21st? The other question is, could this be the reason why more political parties even within and around the FCT 6 council areas have refused to even efficiently and effectively articulate their thoughts, even taking the campaigns to the grassroots? Because it is, for the first time, we're seeing a very lengthy campaign across the Federal Capital Territory. Is there something that we need to know across board? But then we trying to even get INEC to look into this. And another issue again that we will also try to even look into even tonight is the issue around the preparation and the preparedness of INEC for the elections. Now, we know that INEC have recorded success when it has to do with election in Anambra, election in a few other states, off-cycle election across board. But then, bringing it back to the Federal Capital Territory, which traditionally elections are being conducted by INEC itself and not the state electoral umpire. Now, looking at this, the Beavers and also the IRFM portal, how ready is INEC for the election? Can the people of the Federal Capital Territory trust the judgment of Professor Amopitan, who is the current INEC chairman? Can we trust all of the modalities being put in place? Because Federal Capital Territory again is going to be another litmus test for true democracy across the board. Looking at it from the angle of the fact that the Federal Capital Territory is largely polarized. Now, a lot of ethnic groups are residents in the Federal Capital Territory. Now, when you get to certain locations, you enjoy the privilege of even seeing quite different ethnic nationalities that are residents here. Now, the question begging for answer is, will INEC be able to deliver on their mandate, looking at the technology at hand? If yes, then we begin to ask again, looking at the remote part of the Federal Capital Territory, communities or villages across the Federal Capital Territory that are yet to even experience some dividends of democracy across board. Will this technology get to those nooks and crannies of the Federal Capital Territory, or again, will these people be disenfranchised from all of the system? If all of this technology introduced by INEC will eventually get to the remote communities, another question that's now beg for answer is, if this technology gets to these communities, will again INEC be able to account for their vote? Will their vote count, knowing fully well that few communities in Abuja still have slightly network issues, looking at Kwali, looking at Abaji, taking it to Gwagwalada and also to Kuje. What seems to be the most developed area council in the Federal Capital Territory tend to be Buhari and Amak. Places like Kwali, Abaji, Gwagwalada and Kuje still have places in those area councils where if you walk into those axes with your mobile device, you might not be able to access the network. Now, this leave a beta test in transmission of results. Now, if INEC is going to rely basically on the Electoral Act of 2022, if the results are at this various area council are not even being able to be transmitted, what becomes their faith at this point, knowing fully well that most of those communities, most of the words, about 2,000 plus words, and the majority of those words fall within those communities and those area council across board, across the FCT. Now, this again is a very interesting conversation. Now, again, there was one thing that is also standing out in the Federal Capital Territory, and that is the fact that most politicians within that are even coming out to campaign in this period, they've been shying away from even discussing and even addressing and even explaining and help us understand what their manifesto is actually all about. We've seen a lot of politicians and wannabe politicians in the Federal Capital Territory right now, even going about with branded vehicles. And the question is, what is your manifesto? What will you do differently in order to even get the Federal Capital Territory and move it from where it is right now to where you desire it to be? Come share this manifesto with us. And of course, most politicians in the Federal Capital Territory are already shying away from all of those conversations. Now, the manifesto help us understand what are the proposed course of action of every politician. It helps us understand what the politicians are even having under their sleeves, so we can interrogate some of their principles and their beliefs. But then when we don't get all of these manifestos out there and having politicians that cannot defend their manifesto, it leaves a bitter taste in the mouths of the voters. So what we see right now, get to Buhari, you see candidate A accusing candidate B already that is not fit, is a misfit for the position is trying to clamor for. Now, all of this have been put together. It's again a cause for concern about the strength of the Nigerian body politics, but then it is the Federal Capital Territory, and elections are not just it's not just an election per se. It is a very interesting time to even x-ray the Nigerian politics and body politics in general. And of course, we are even trying to look at all of that this tonight, trying to even find and looking at all of this. So we don't say that the reason why most campaigns have not even started, and most politicians are trying not to even get involved with the political narratives, and probably we're tying up to the whole issue around the Ramadan fasting. But then to help us even understand this issue, I have with me in the studio right now a person of Honorable Adoga Godwin. I will take a short break right now, and when we return, we'll dive into the conversation. Please go nowhere. Hey, welcome back. Well, come 2026, February the 21st, about 1.6 million registered voters across the Federal Capital Territory going out to cast their vote across the 2,000 plus wards across the Federal Capital Territory. But joining me to help me even look at the whole election process in the Federal Capital Territory right now is Honorable Adoga Godwin. It's a delight to have you on Correro.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. I always like coming to this place. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a very good conversation.
Most definitely,
yeah.
Of course. But then let's even look at the whole election in the Federal Capital Territory right now. Looking at the campaigns, looking at the manifesto. One question that residents within the Federal Capital Territory are asking right now, are we ready for this election? The electoral umpire, looking at what is being put in place, can we say that they can deliver across the 6 area council in the Federal Capital Territory?
I mean, they better deliver. This will be the first election that the new INEC chairman is going to manage.
It's a litmus test.
It's a litmus test for not only his capacity, but a test of whether this administration is prepared to carry out, credible elections going forward. Remember, we're in 2026, a year where every political party is going to contest or, draw up their primaries. And everybody who is trying to be president, senator, or governor, or, every other kind of position is going to actually put their hat in the ring and try to, test their popularity. So INEC is going to be sending a message with the area council election. It's important for them to put on a good show, not only for citizens of Abuja. I think that citizens of Abuja or residents of Abuja are basically the guinea pigs, in this lab experiment of, electoral prudence from INEC. And the onus is actually on INEC to provide a good playing ground for all political parties, candidates, and stakeholders to really see what this is all about. As for the residents, are we ready? I would say yes. Elections are, in FCT are very local. A lot of times people vote based on how they think, in terms of their interests, their opinions, and the burning issues that really speak to them. Are people voting across ethnic lines? Are people voting across ideological polity lines? Are people voting simply because they are less busy? We'll get to find out. But I'm very sure about something. This area council election is not going to be the typical area council election we've witnessed. We all know that FCT has been a very, difficult place for every ruling party to actually win, regardless of whether they are on top or not. So, again, all political gladiators, myself included, would actually be jostling to actually see if we can maintain status quo or even disrupt the current system. So yes, I think people are ready. We've done a lot of consultation. I'm sure my colleagues have also done the same thing. The reason why it looks like, the campaigns may not be very visible is because of how polarized and how localized the elections are. We're not discussing national issues when we talk about FCT elections. We don't discuss things that happen in Lagos, right? We don't discuss things that happen in Benue, the crisis in Zamfara. We only talk about FCT issues. So it may not concern somebody in Nasarawa State who, of course, might live here. It may not concern somebody in Kaduna State who has issues, who has things to do in Abuja. So, the publicity might not be so much. But you will agree with me that Peter Obi's coming has actually done a number on a lot of people's mindset concerning the election. I'm pretty sure you have some questions to ask me about that.
Well, interesting. Before we get to that point, let's even talk about the manifesto. Now, for the first time in the Federal Capital Territory, we are seeing politicians, a majority of politicians, vying for various offices.
Absolutely. And
shying away from even talking about their manifestos. Now, why is this so?
FCT area council elections has always been tribal. And when I say tribal, it has always been some sort of compensation for a group of individuals who are majorly domiciled here, or people who have been doing politics here pretty much, way before the coming of the current democracy we had in 1999. But that is about to change. The reason why people are shying away from speaking about manifesto most times is because they don't have any manifesto.
That it seems so.
Yes.
Because most majority of the politicians we've interacted with cannot even defend what they are coming to, even what they're proposing.
Absolutely. They can't articulate what exactly is their policy position, cannot articulate what exactly they are there for, what they've even done. And the reason is because for these individuals, power is not something you use to benefit democracy. Power is something you use to compensate, position. And because of 2023, and I always make that reference, 2023 was a landmark year, right? A lot of things change in our current political system. People who were outside, they were outside the traditional political establishment were able to get in, right? I make example with somebody who was a Okada rider in Kaduna State. Never in the history of this country would he have had a chance to actually be in the Green Chamber. Today he's there. I think he has even defected to the All Progressive Congress. But that's a topic for another day. Now, because of that 2023 year, a lot of things have changed. Now, politicians are vying for the area council election, people who actually have manifestos, people who want to talk about it. Some other establishment politicians are shying away from it because it's a contest that doesn't seem fair to them because they're not used to doing this kind of thing. And I think from 2026, there's going to be another paradigm shift. Area council elections will bring in a tenure of 4 years. And this is the first time we're going to have, I think second time we're going to have chairmen and councillors who have to stay 4 years in office. It used to be 3 years. Now they're going to stay 4 years. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny, a lot of attention. I'm pretty sure journalists like yourself will bring more people here to fire them questions, to ask them about what they are doing and what they are currently doing. And this is important because without people like you, without media actually doing their job and throwing the light on the grassroots, people will just think there's nothing really happening. But let me tell you something. We have had councillors in FCT since 1999. Going back to 1995, nobody knows what exactly they do. We have local government chairman, nobody knows exactly what they do. And this is the first time we have people like Dr. Moses Paul coming in and talking about things, and people are wondering, really, is this what local government does? Are you aware that local government is actually in charge of waste management? They're in charge of primary health care. They're in charge of primary schools, LEA. And these are the things, some of these things are broken down. And you're wondering, where is this level of government? They exist. But all they do with government, public funds is, well, I don't want to make any allegations, but we already know what they do with public funds. And this is just unfair. And this is the reason why this election in 2026 is really important. The momentum currently, if you would agree with me, is with the opposition. Because FCT, again, just like you mentioned, is a litmus test for whatever we are about to see in 2027. And it better be a good show.
Interesting. Let's even travel down to Kwali, Abaji, Gwagwalada, and Kuje, where we have quite a number of registered voters.
Absolutely.
But then, looking at the technology of INEC right now, and I still understand that a lot of communities within that axis, a lot of wards, still do not have internet. A lot of communities in those axes, when you get to those points, your phone, the whole network will cease. And this is the Federal Capital Territory. Now, in all of this, again, technologically wise, can we say that INEC is actually ready to deliver, knowing fully well that those places are not even they are not even technologically advanced.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this was a major concern on the floor of the Senate. Recently there was talk about mandating electronic transfer of results from polling units to IREV, right?
Yeah.
And there were arguments about it. You see, the social media spaces are watched with a lot of opinions. And I think the major concern is that most of Nigeria is not covered with internet technology, and it might be unfair to. It might disenfranchise people who may not have access to data, access to credible or strong connection to be able to upload their data. So there's a room for people to use the traditional
manual and transmission.
However, what I would say is that for the area council election, INEC needs to think about it like a test, and I don't use that word lightly. Internet connection this is something that has been sorted out. if people in the rural areas cannot afford data or don't have network on their phones, or if you travel there and you don't have network, that is a different situation. But INEC themselves need to understand that they don't have to rely on the normal or the traditional internet providers. There are providers like Starlink that are 100% always connected, right? There is no place you go to in this country that cannot be covered by internet. And you know, we shouldn't approach INEC like ordinary people. INEC should be equipped with the highest level of technology to be able to carry out their assignment, even though people in that place do not have the same technology. INEC should be able to provide access to technology for their own job to be successful. And let me tell you something, in 2023, even in urban areas, there were situations where there was no network. Even in urban areas like Karu, there were places where network was faulty, the machine did not work, and all of these things. And I remember Yaga Africa, Samson Itodo, in his report, did mention that one of the major issues, you know, that actually made the election difficult or kind of gave it, you know, a lower mark was because of the malfunctioning of technology, like BVAS machines. You know, I think before BVAS it was card reader.
Yeah.
They wouldn't work. Sometimes the thumb print machine would get greasy and they have to clean it and wait for it to dry before it begins to pick people. Disenfranchising people. Polling units with 400, 500 voters could not get the number of, you know, could not capture everybody. Only about maybe 30 to 20, so 40% were able to vote. So these things need to stop happening. And these are technological, these are human errors. So INEC needs to really see how can we really improve from where we were. If what happened in 2022 area council election happens again, then we know INEC is not serious. But if we see this time around that there are prompt deployment of machines, prompt training of people who handle those machines, you know, prompt response to complaints, then we can actually be certain that in 2026, INEC is up to the task. And let me remind you that there's another election coming up in Nigeria for 2027. The Ekiti governorship election is coming up very soon.
Off-cycle election.
Yeah.
All right. So let's even look at the fear which a lot of voters are dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And that is first, the issue around the old Ramadan fasting, which Muslim faithfuls have written to INEC for the cancellation of the election in order to better prepare for the fasting period. Could this be a reason why there's low turnout of campaigns? And as a matter of contingency, a lot of politicians and political parties are not even aware that elections is even coming up on the 21st of February. Could this be a reason why we low campaign drums?
Well,
and do you see this whole election being cancelled?
INEC, I don't think will cancel the election. I think, you know, historically we've had low turnouts of, you know, electorates in area council election. I think it has been around 5 to 7% turnout. When you're taking the data from the number of registered voters and the number of people who actually get accredited at the polling unit, whether they vote or not, right? It's always about 5 to 10% for area council election. So if there's a low turnout, it wouldn't really surprise me. But what I would say is that the Ramadan is a cultural factor, right? It's a cultural factor. It would, I don't see disenfranchising people. What I see it doing is that it falls in a period where, you know, there might be some nuances that we probably haven't experienced. But then again, the campaign is not loud, or doesn't seem to be loud, because compared to what we are used to, right? Compared to what we are used to, the scale of this election is let me say 1/36. Because we're talking about a single local government election happening in FCT. It's 1/36 of all, you know, elections.
So it doesn't deserve the drums. It doesn't deserve the noise.
We're not discussing national issues.
So, but the FCT deserve even all the noise and all the drums, because if you recall that a lot of communities in the FCT are yet to even experience the dividends of democracy for the last 20 years plus. I can count a few local governments and few area councils, I beg your pardon, that have not even seen road construction.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't deserve the noise, doesn't deserve the campaign.
I mean, it does. Campaign is expensive.
Okay.
It is pretty expensive. So a lot of time, political actors fund campaigns based off of how they perceive the returns on investments to be. Not trying to be capitalist or anything, but if you look at what AMAC can actually do, a lot of people misinterpret it. AMAC is a huge local government, almost equivalent to what a state can actually do in terms of the capacity and even revenue, if you talk about it that way. But a lot of people are not able to see it. I just mentioned that AMAC handles waste management, handles, markets. AMAC handles, public healthcare, public schools. A lot of people are not aware. So this again comes down to voter education. This again comes down to penetration of government. A lot of people are going about their lives. They don't feel they are affected by AMAC. They don't feel they are affected by local government areas. Area council, players. A lot of people come to work in the city center and owe their allegiance to probably the minister, or kind of draw their livelihood from business and all of those things without actually saying how local government affects them. But what we are trying to do is to inform them that the local government is in charge of most things they are suffering, and they are not aware of it. So yes, the area council election deserves the drums. However, the funding for those drums is directly proportional to the information people have about the election.
Interesting. There are speculations that come February 21st, that this election will be largely influenced by the FCT minister who has been championing the cause. Even a lot of persons right now from the People's Democratic Party are already moving to the All Progressive Congress. You belong to the All African Democratic Congress.
Yes.
Looking at this, is there panic from your zone?
Thank you so much. In fact, I'm happy you asked that question. FCT Area Council election, I want you to know, can never be rigged. It has never been historically rigged. It is not even easy to rig. It is extremely expensive to rig. It is easier to win naturally than to rig, because the methods of rigging that work in other places typically don't work in cosmopolitan areas where people decide things on their own.
You feel so? Looking at Kwali and Abuja and also Kuje
even in Kwali is, even in those areas, there is such a big melting pot of different people, of different tribes. I was in the National Secretariat of the African Democratic Congress last night, and we're doing some discussions, and candidates from Kwali came. And these are people from different tribes, people from Benue State, people from Akwa Ibom, contesting in FCT. And all these people represent their communities in FCT. So FCT is such a difficult place to really understand when we talk about the demographic analysis. It's not easy to guide people into one envelope and leave them there. A lot of individuals have different interests and different opinions about issues. There are people who still have grudges with the minister. They are in Abuja here. There are people who have decided that this area council election is their business and their daily bread. They are living in Abuja here. The reason why it's difficult to rig, and the reason why I can assure anybody that this election will not be rigged, is because the players who actually participate in area council election have kind of immersed themselves into the system. External forces have to consult them. People like myself have been here for too long to actually see an external force and just bail out. Again, FCT area council election is not a normal election. There is no place, I think the only place in Nigeria that is similar to FCT is Lagos, in terms of how the people behave. FCT is so different. It's so different, it kind of looks like an experiment. A lot of people here don't owe their allegiance to any tribe, any chief, any religion. They go about their business. On the day of election, people will come out to vote for who they want to vote for. You cannot use violence to threaten people in FCT. People will reject you. You cannot bring money to polling units. If they collect your money, they will still vote for who they want to vote for because of high level of literacy. And I do agree with you that in areas like Abuja, where we may have bad roads, poor access to, electoral materials, the methods of rigging might be different. You might rig people by refusing to send them electoral materials on time. You might disenfranchise people by refusing to upload their results. Those are things that can happen. But as long as people cast their votes, as long as there's turnout, this election, the results will not be changed.
So you're not afraid that
there's nothing to fear.
It will be influenced.
We don't have we don't have a big man problem in FCT. We may have big man problem everywhere, where a big man comes to decide things. But in FCT, we don't have a big man problem. We are emancipated from the big man threat because everybody in FCT is a big man on his own.
Well, it's interesting to know that every man is a big man in the FCT. I wish we have more time to even look at other pressing issues even in the Federal Capital Territory, but right now being signaled by my producer that it's time for us to go. But then before I even let you go, Karo is a very peculiar community.
Absolutely.
And of course, when we begin to ask a salient question, looking at Karo as he stands right now, if there's an election tomorrow, are you confident of even winning the election?
If there's an election
tomorrow
evening, this evening.
No, let's put it tomorrow. It's already let's go out in the night.
That's how confident I am.
All right.
If it happens in another 1 hour, the African Democratic Congress is going to win. We're going to win. And it is not because we are being cocky about it. It's not because we're having hubris or arrogant. It's because we've actually looked at the data and we've seen the signs. There are things, there are data points you look at before you actually approach an election. Just like Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, a wise warrior wins the battle before going to war. You don't go to war and then try to win the battle. We've actually looked at the people, the data, the sentiment analysis, and we've gone down to consult with the individuals. This election is not going to be an indigenous election. This is an urban election. And the candidates that are coming up are urban politicians with public issues, talking about policy and things that interest the populace.
Well, the problem with asking a politician, what is your name, is the politician will tell you my name is, and you extend the conversation for that. Just to ask you a simple question, we've opened a textbook for it. But I want to say thank you so much, Adoga Godwin.
Thank you.
Find out time to be with us here on Correro.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, this is how far we can go tonight on the show. Do not forget that you can leave a comment and follow us across all our social media handle currently showing on your screen. And you can also download the Rapid TV app from your Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcast. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Do enjoy the rest of your night rest. Bye for now.